In 1994, after a long period of eager anticipation, I was able to get Wraith the Oblivion, first edition. And I've journeyed forward with Wraith since then. It has been a relationship of deep love and appreciation. Now, with the 20th anniversary edition here, let's explore and see if that relationship can continue in love or must change in some way. At times, this will no doubt sound very negative or disappointed. Expect that and listen. And at times, this will sound very enthusiastic and positive. Expect that and listen. And maybe by the time we get to the end, we will have a more balanced understanding and appreciation of what Wraith has now become.
Okay. Guess what the subject of this video might be. This is the first of a series, which is going to go through this book chapter by chapter. And as we move on, as we get into the later chapters, an effort will be made to compare the 20th anniversary edition to the first, second editions, and to Great War. But at the outset, we're just going to ease ourselves back into Wraith. This particular look at series is really just going to look at it. Right? This particular copy is the print-on-demand copy. If we finish before the real copy comes, so be it. If not, maybe we'll do it again. But it's a big book. Why would you want it if you, like me, already have all of first edition, all of second edition? You know, why would you want it? Well, almost everything you need is under one set of covers. But anyway, let's take a look. The opening of the book is the first Wraith product I ever got to see. Right? The Face of Death. And it's a primarily art-based tour of all the concepts that the game covers. It goes a little bit farther maybe than a starting character might be able to go on character creation. But you know, it's art, it's inspiration, it talks to you, it's all questions, and all very powerful images in kind of a sepia tone. It works very hard to, you know, establish a beachhead in your mind for how Wraith is different than you might expect, how Wraith is different from other games, and what kind of situations you might want to try encountering with it so you can find your own way with the game. So it made a pretty strong impression on me, and I liked the change from the idea of just Ghost to the idea of Wraith. Right. Now, it's quite long, so it has a, you know, it has pride of place in the opening of the book. So we don't actually, see, I'm still just keep turning pages. We don't actually get to Wraith 20. How far? How far? Now I'm skipping multiple pages. All right, now we come up on the end. And we have our protagonist roaring off into the Shadowlands with his, you know, his scythe on his back. Your journey into death has just begun. Very cool. And we have a repeat of the cover. Then we get the obligatory kind of White Wolf inspired credits page, minus the cool nicknames that they used to give themselves. And we get the contents in very, very tiny print, which run all the way until page 11. And the index starts on page 491. So, you know, the book itself really then starts on page 15. Right? There's cool chapter header art. And chapter 1 is called the introduction. I don't know what I expected from the introduction. I do have to say I'm a little underwhelmed. It's very repetitive, very circular. Yes, it's an introduction. Yes, repetition helps with communicating ideas, but in what? Paragraph 1 tells us we're talking about ghost stories. Paragraph 2 says that Wraith is a ghost story. Paragraph 3 is one sentence. It says, in Wraith you play ghosts. Then paragraph 4 is we're going to use this game to tell ghost stories. Paragraph 5 is how to approach a role-playing game. Paragraph 6 is one sentence that tells you it's a ghost story. Paragraph 7 tells you it's time for us to start telling you how to play this ghost story. And I'm not joking, right? So while it's a nice read, it puts a smile on your face thinking, yeah, Wraith is back, it's also something that I would expect an editor to want you to tighten up and make more powerful. Then we get into a little history, which tells us about the game of Wraith. It's just 2 paragraphs, it's good. It reiterates twice that this is a story about ghosts, or this is a game about ghosts. Then we get into storytelling and role-playing, which is exactly what we've just read. No joke. And it's the same kind of repetition, same kind of cycle, does the same thing. So, yeah. Then that storytelling and role-playing thing ends with 2 paragraphs, one of which tells you where you're going to find things, and then Wraith tells you how you play tabletop role-playing games. Those last 2 paragraphs. Then we get how to use this book, which tells you where you're going to find everything in the book. Okay, that was covered in the index, that was covered in this paragraph up here, and now it's covered in this whole section. Okay, that feels a little nitpicky because it's much easier to go to the how to use this book thing, but it's not easier than going to the table of contents. So then we have roles, starting with the Storyteller. And okay, so since the original World of Darkness, since these original games appeared 20 some odd years ago, we've learned to talk about role-playing games more and better. And this one's all over the map. This is incoherent in the way that it's talking about role-playing games, and I don't know why. There's no real excuse for it. It says every game needs a storyteller, and the ones you create collectively playing Wraith are no exception. If there's a storyteller, how can we really get into the concept of collective storytelling? It goes on to talk about how the storyteller creates the story, shapes it, builds it, launches it, is in charge of it, needs players to play out roles in their story. And it talks about the players, and it alternately says that you're going to be experiencing some other personality while at the same time saying you're going to be inhabiting an avatar. You are going to be in the world. Which one is it? Speak clearly, right? Draw a line in the sand. Don't try and be all things to all people. Be clear about how the game is best played. It's been more than 20 years. This game is 4 years late, so this is the 24th anniversary of this game. I think we know how to play it now. Let's be honest about it. Let's be clear about it. Then we get into character, which conflates with the player chapter. We get into winners and losers, which we've already talked about. We get into playing aids so that we can get into LARP. And then we get to the basics. And the basics tells you over and over and over and over again that you're playing a ghost. Okay. So the game starts to get good, or the writing in this chapter starts to get good around Wraith characteristics on page 20. From my perspective, things that aren't a cyclical repetition that feels like multiple authors being given the same writing assignment. We've got Wraith characteristics, we have Shadow, We have Oblivion, we have Transcendence, we have the Passion and the Horror. This is all really quite good. The last part takes us into the lexicon, which is pretty good. It's what you'd expect. It's a lexicon of terms that you're going to need. It's in the right place. It's up at the beginning. And it folds in all the different things that we're going to see in this, collated, collected version of the game. Stuff that we didn't get information about in the original Wraith. Interesting things that I note is that the word chronicle has disappeared and has been replaced by campaign. I find that interesting. But anyway, it's not too long. It goes on for 3 pages or 2 pages total. And the last part of the chapter is source material. The source material is very short. You see, this is the beginning of chapter 2, which is setting. So we have a very, very short recommended readings. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And recommended viewing, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, or 16 things to watch. There are some very strange things that are missing, such as Ghost, which was very obviously important to the creation of Wraith. Maybe that's why it's missing. The Crow is missing, both as a reading or as a viewing in any of its incarnations. This is pretty strange. We have a Manhattan Ghost Story. We've got Drawing Blood by Poppy Zebright. We've got Peter Straub's Ghost Stories, or Ghost Story. We've got The Haunting of Hill House by Shirley Jackson. Heart-Shaped Box, Joe Hill. The Shining by Stephen King, Turn of the Screw, Henry James, and others. For recommended viewing, we have American Horror Story, Murder House. We've got Bedlam, Beetlejuice. You can definitely see how Beetlejuice plays into things. When we watched Beetlejuice, we definitely saw the connection. The Changeling, The Conjuring, Devil's Backbone, The Frighteners, Insidious, Poltergeist, again, The Shining, and The Sixth Sense. And there's others, but these are the things. So it's interesting. I would like to have a conversation with somebody about why these particular ones were chosen, or if this list was cut down to save space, or what. But it's interesting. The source material chapter or paragraph itself says, Ghost Stories provide a particularly rich vein of inspiration for Wraith. From the classics, think Hamlet and Macbeth, not to mention Dickens, and Saul's biblical visit to the Witch of Endor to summon up the shade of the prophet Samuel, to more recent hauntings like the Blair Witch Project and Ghost Hunters. There's plenty of ghostly material to choose from, and here are some that may be particularly useful. So it's interesting. And this ends chapter 1, Introduction. The most valuable part of it is, of course, this. From the initial promo material, right, The Face of Death, which goes through arrival in the Skinlands, in the Shadowlands, crossing over, and accepting the fact that you are on this journey, that you're exploring these new lands, the lands of the dead. That has the most value. To read over and over again that a Wraith is one of the restless dead, and I literally mean over and over and over and over again. I'm not sure it's the best use of the rest of this introduction, but there may be some struggling that we older players have to exert or press through in order to see this game for what it is, right? In order to find the things that were changed, the things that were improved, the things that were dropped for reasons that we're not really sure of, and come to terms with the 20th anniversary edition. So this series is going to be my process of trying to work through it, and I'm a little underwhelmed at how the text in that introduction is being treated. This was your second chance to turn this game into something that it never got to be. And right now it reads like just another game. So until the next installment,